Russia is not about to vanish as an economic force. But given the fact that they have a very small population base as
Yeah.
compared to China and India, their ability to uh, have high growth rates dependent on the internal market is not very good.
You're on the gist on Strat News Global. Welcome. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Our focus is on the SCO summit, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin, China, which kicks off on Sunday. Prime Minister Modi is there. And we're going to try and break down what this SCO is about, why the PM is going. And my expert is Nandan Unnikrishnan, who heads the Russia Studies program at the Observer Research Foundation. Nandan, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Nandan, the SEO summit, this is the first one the PM is attending in person after two misses, I think. Is there some issue we have with the SEO? Do we take it seriously enough?
No, I think I don't think you can say that there is a disinterest in SCO unless we do not value Dr. Jaishankar's time, because Dr. Jaishankar has attended the previous two summits. And I think he's an important member of the government. So there probably were reasons that Mr. Modi could not attend. But you're right in a different sense. While we may be serious, there is a perception that has gone around, particularly the Central Asian states, which is not helpful for us, because the original idea of joining the SCO in 2017 was to help India improve its footprint in Central Asia, particularly, and by increasing its profile, offer the Central Asian countries, in whatever little capacity we can, an alternative to China and Russia, or the EU, the United States, the many players who are in that region.
So, after two misses and one virtual, we have some ground to cover.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think one is it'll be very useful for the Prime Minister, because he will get to once again meet face to face with the Central Asian leaders, which would be a positive in the bilateral sense for our relationship with the Central Asian countries. The Central Asian leaders also have issues that they would like to discuss with our Prime Minister, particularly economic issues linked to connectivity, investments, and a few others. So I think that is one positive, that this catch up, as it were, with the Central Asians will help us in what now is becoming an imperative of economic diversification, as it were, particularly for our exports and investments. The second aspect is, which is probably the more overwhelming aspect, is that this is the first time the Prime Minister is going to China in what, over 5 years, 7 years?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that is a could be an inflection point in India-China relations, and it would be hugely symbolic because it is taking place on the platform of the SCO, as it were, and SCO is actually playing an important role in the Eurasian landmass. The third aspect, of course, there will be a meeting with Mr. Putin, but I am assuming, and right now at least, I am under the impression that the visit of Mr. Putin to India is expected later this year. So that would be, I guess, far more significant than this bilateral meeting, if there is one, between Putin and Modi. But what is also important is that for once, all these leaders are going to get together, and terrorism is one of the main aspects that India is concerned about. One of the things that we joined SCO for was to have joint counterterrorism programs and to fight terrorism together. Uh, and finally, of course, but not the least, Central Asia and Russia and China and in Iran play an important role in stabilization of Afghanistan. And that is a place which is of great importance to us strategically. So there are many things I think Mr. Modi could contribute to during this trip to the SCO meeting.
So you mentioned terrorism. This is something which we talk a lot about, but doesn't appear to have much resonance among the others because I'm not aware of any great terrorism in Central Asia. Russia, we have had the odd attacks here now and then, even China, but nothing that big. Are we the only ones beating the drum?
No, I don't agree with you, Surya. I think terrorism has huge resonance within the SCO, whether it is Russia, China, the Central Asians, Iran, even Pakistan for that matter. The point is we conflate our terrorist challenge with the world's terrorism challenges,
Hmm.
which need not necessarily always coincide. Uh, we have our challenges, and we see them emanating primarily out of Pakistan. So when we talk of terrorism, we are essentially talking of Pakistan as the mothership
Yeah.
from where this all emanates. But the other members of SCO do not necessarily see Pakistan as the mothership. You see, they they probably see the territory of Afghanistan as the training ground, because into those countries, uh, the drug trafficking, the smuggling of arms, the smuggling of terrorists, it takes place primarily from training grounds in Afghanistan. So for Russia, the Central Asian countries, the primary challenge is out of that region. So there is a dissonance between us in terms of who we see as the main sort of fountainhead of terrorism. So maybe because of that, it appears as if there is no resonance from other countries in the SCO. But I can assure you that they are as uh, taken up by the challenge of terrorism as we are. And I'm sure that the SCO has several joint operations in mind to deal with this menace.
Let's come to the context of the summit. It's taking place at a time when India is under pressure over Trump's tariffs, and there is an impression that we have rushed, suddenly. We've kind of rediscovered Russia. We've mending fences with China, although that is of recent vintage. It has been happening for some time. But is this impression entirely accurate?
I, uh, I don't think so. I mean, yes, it would appear on the surface to be so, but if you look at stuff chronologically, uh, then you will see that, for example, our thawing with China really started in October last year, and
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
well before the Trump presidency.
Hmm.
So, I don't think you can link it to the tariff wars in any sense, because in October last year, whoever foresaw the tariff wars, they absolutely would make $1 zillion as an astrologer.
Hmm.
So, you have that chronology. As far as Russia is concerned, I think we started after the Ukraine war. There was a certain amount of what appeared to be distancing, but with the July visit of Prime Minister Modi, I think things started looking up. And then again, for the first time, Modi went twice to Russia. He went for the
Yeah.
Kazan summit also. In fact, there we use that as an opportunity to have a bilateral with Xi Jinping after many years. So I think the reach out to the countries, the great powers of Eurasia, had happened earlier. Uh, what we could say is that the tariff wars as we see them today may have added a certain amount of impetus to a process that was already underway. On the other hand, I would like to strike a note of caution in the sense that, uh, I mean, there would be many who would attempt to criticize India for not reading the signals, for getting caught in this tariff war with Trump, and sort of there'll be many who will be self-flagellation and trying to find fault with the government. Uh, but the point is that I think we have to always keep in mind that given India's development challenge, India's challenges internally, I think we have to keep in mind that the West has a very important role to play in India meeting these challenges. These challenges cannot be met with just China or Russia or Central Asia for that matter and others. There has to be a distinct contribution made by the Western countries. And I think our leadership is aware of that. And that is why I think uh, we are not, at least verbally, not hitting back at the West for the sanctions. I mean, the US in this particular case for the tariffs and all. Although we are maintaining our dignity by saying that we shall not function according to anyone's diktat. So, to come back to the original question, I don't think that we are running towards Russia or China because of the tariff wars. Uh, the desire to build closer links started much earlier. There may have been a certain impetus uh, to sort of quickly exchange notes because all of us under attack from the same source. So you may want to exchange a few notes and sort of share experiences. But I don't think there's anything more than that.
But is Russia a go-to guy in times of trouble like the present? Maybe, I mean, some kind of a balancing thing. It's a comfort, I mean, Russia, in a sense, also spells a degree of comfort.
Well, I don't know. Indian elites, let's be very clear, Indian elites are split. I mean, there are sufficient number who would like to junk Russia and get to the US without
Yeah.
any encumbrances. But India's national interest at this point of time just does not permit that kind of change of course, if you want. But I think over the past several years, several decades, if you want, we have developed a certain level of trust and comfort. And I'm emphasizing both trust and comfort with first the Soviet Union and then now its successor, Russia. And so it is but natural that in times of trouble, we would like to share our concerns with the Russians and hear what they say. Of course, our relationship with Russia has changed. Russia is not the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
It is not the superpower that the Soviet Union once was. Also, after the Ukraine war, the relationship between Russia and our primary adversary, China, has changed. And we, at least in India, we fear that Russia has become a little bit more dependent on China. Although we don't go to the extent of what the Americans and others do of describing Russia as a junior partner to China, it's far from that. But nevertheless, it probably is going to be far more neutral than in the past, is what our concern is. Uh, but nevertheless, the closer relationship with Russia will allow us to gauge how near or how close the relationship between Russia and China is. And the second is that if the Russians feel that India is still interested and India is still wants to keep a warm relationship with Russia, the impetus towards an all encompassing alliance with China will be much, much less.
Tell me, what do the Russians think of us? How do they see us?
That's a very complicated question. You know, in Russia also, there are a variety of uh, elite groups. They don't necessarily agree with each other, and they have uh, distinct views of how they view India and India's role. Russia has, for example, a fairly strong China lobby, right? Comprising politicians, business people, bureaucrats, and even ordinary members of the expert community and ordinary people. Now, for them, of course, India is an old relationship. There is a historical value, but they feel that China is the future and China is the place that we need to go to. Equally, there are those who believe that Russia is ultimately a distinct, but still more akin to a Western civilization. And therefore, uh, that is the direction, despite the travails of the Ukraine war and the current conflict with the West, eventually, that is the direction in which Russia should be headed. And then there is the third, which uh, seems to be, at least in my understanding, the the section of the elite to which even President Putin belongs, who sees Russia as a great power that requires to have functional relationships with all other great powers. And that is why he's happy to engage with Trump despite being in conflict in a proxy war with the US over Ukraine. He's happy to engage with other parties, including China and India, because he believes that Russia has a role and has a capacity to contribute to the global order, to a global order that is evolving in the current period of transition from a unipolar world to whatever. We don't know what the other end is yet. But, uh, and it is this interactions between these three broad sections that determine overall policy towards India. So I would not say that India is necessarily on the radar of every of the 240 million Russians, but in cabinets of importance in the corridors of Kremlin, India is definitely a pixel somewhere on the radars that they have.
And is there a sense in Russia that they've been kind of ignored by us for some time, that we've been looking more and more to the West? You mentioned our elites look to the West.
Well, I don't think the Russians look at this, at least those who make policy, look at this in terms of emotion. Oh, he's not looking at me. He's not
Yeah.
shaking hands with me. I don't think that is what disturbs them or makes them lose sleep at night. I think the Russians, if I can describe it, there is a disappointment with us, not because of the fact that we are not close to them or getting closer to the West. There is a disappointment with us because they were hoping that India would develop economically faster. They see India as a pole that will keep Russia and give Russia strategic elbow room vis-a-vis other great powers, particularly USA and China. And India's slow growth economically, you know, even though we have a quick pace of GDP and everything, but still it is not as fast as they want. And that slowness is something that is disappointing for them. But I don't think Russia has reached a stage where they have lost hope in India, or that they feel that India is lost to them in the true sense of the word. On the contrary, if I can see from my conversations with some of the Russian officials, there is a very quiet determination to sort of strengthen the relationship with India. To put it crudely, they're not letting us go to the USA quietly.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, let's get back to the SCO. What do you expect is going to emerge from this summit? What would you like to
You know,
see?
Surya, as I said, I'm not in the prediction game, so I really would find it difficult. But there are two or three things that I would like to see. One is, I think, the interaction between our prime minister and the leaders of the Central Asian countries will hopefully add a certain amount of energy into our relationship, bilateral relationships with these countries. At the end of the day, while we talk of Central Asia as this one big zone, and which is important, it is an entity, but it is comprised of five separate countries,
Yeah.
and each of them have their own difficulties, problems, concerns, and each of them sees a specifically different role for India. So I think we need to understand these nuances, and meetings at the high level go a long distance in sorting out any cobwebs, in removing them. So I'm hoping that this is the case in the meeting that takes place in China. Uh, of course, I'm putting much in store in the meeting between Xi Jinping and Modi. Uh, I mean, like many Indians, I may be disappointed once again. The Chinese do have some ability to do that. But nevertheless, as they say, we live on hope. And I'm hoping that given the kind of world that we are in currently, where there are so many unpredictables, so many surprises around the corner, I think that both China and India would like to eliminate this unpredictability, at least for the next decade, from their relationship. And that is something that I think suits India also. If we can, for the next, let's say, 10 years, have a predictable, stable relationship with China, then we can get on with our development project. We can get on with addressing our internal problems, which are a million. And as much as I said earlier that the West has this important role to play in this, China can also contribute towards our development project. China also has capacities that could be useful to us. So, therefore, I think if this meeting between Xi Jinping and Modi brings about a certain amount of predictability, that would more than uh, amply cover whatever expectations people may have of Mr. Modi's visits to Japan and China. And the visit to Japan is already likely to be a success because I believe the Japanese are looking at uh, investments which exceed $50 billion in
Yeah.
India over the next few years. Now, that is something that we sorely need, and India would welcome that kind of investment.
Just a word on China. President Xi has presided over some fairly unpredictable period in the relations with India. We've had Doklam, we've had Galwan clashes, so on and so forth. I mean, we expect him to change now, or it's a hope.
You know, barring the Galwan clashes, but I think we have a fair understanding of what is happening between China and India. And I think when I say assurances of predictability, it takes two hands to clap.
Absolutely.
So it's not as if I am sitting here in New Delhi and waiting for unilateral concessions to be made from Beijing. Clearly, we also have to bring something to the table to allow for this predictability. And I think if somebody like me understands this, then I'm sure somebody like Mr. Modi, advised by Dr. Jaishankar, would amply understand these issues. And therefore, the conversation between Xi Jinping and Modi, in my opinion, should be a productive conversation. So if we get there, I think that would be the first step in building this trust, which hopefully uh, leads to elimination of events like Doklam or what preceded Doklam in 2013 and 2014, and subsequently, of course, the tragedy of Galwan.
Now, last question, Nandan. You've, I think, partly also already answered this in terms of the constituency for India in Russia. I mean, it's sometimes said that the Putin is the one guy who is pushes this relationship or favors it. Would you say that's the case? Perhaps even here, Modi on one side, Putin on the other.
No, in India, you see, we have, uh, at least in the public perception, uh, we have a sort of understanding of Russia as a friend.
Yeah,
It is something that on the street you go, there is support for Russia. Uh, People in India seem to like Putin,
yeah.
whatever reasons, but they like Putin. So there is, in that sense, a public constituency for India. In Russia, the understanding of India is a little bit more complicated. I mean, because we have never been on, on the Security Council to veto something, to more
Yeah.
directly intervene in the interests of Russia. So the average Russian public usually sees Indians as spiritually akin, to them. They love India's spirituality, and they feel that India is this country that welcomes multiple cultures, that it does not discriminate. And so there is a certain appeal that India has to them. But unfortunately, that is in the public mind. That is not lobby. It is not. Uh, and a lobby comes about when you develop serious economic interests.
Yeah.
Now our relationship has started growing thanks to the oil trade and all. And probably on both sides, you've developed elites that are invested in maintaining this addiction that India has developed for Russian oil. But as I said, this is a complicated game. Coming back to your question directly, as far as India's lobby in Russia is concerned, yes, it is said that Mr. Putin is one person who still has a strong affinity towards India and believes that India, Russia have an important role to play. But I would not say that he's the only one.
Okay.
I think there are other players in the government. There are other players in the bureaucracy. The problem is the lack of players, both Indian as well as Russian, in the business front, the private business people. You know, Government, yes, I understand. We have interests and all that. But in the private sector, both from the Russian side and the Indian side, the involvement is uh, not commensurate to the relationship. It has to improve. I can't recall any big Indian uh, business house that is actively today involved in Russia. Neither can I think of any of the major oligarchs in Russia involved in India today in their capacities as private companies. Some of them may be involved as part holders of government concerns,
Yeah.
but directly no. So I think unless we develop that kind of linkage, we will never be able to match the kind of lobby that China has, or even the US for that matter.
And would you say Russia is a declining power, as is widely said in many parts of the world?
Declining from where? No, look, if at all, I mean, people forget history. The Soviet Union was smaller than the United States, but it
Yeah.
was a great power. Then the Soviet Union broke up. And Russia was, I mean, its GDP was equal to Portugal or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and in fact, people used to talk about it as, Papua New Guinea with nuclear weapons. That
Yeah.
used to be in the 90s the sort of derogatory approach to Russia. It is also reflected in the fact that the triumphalism of the collapse of the Soviet Union, the West never took Russia seriously, never
Yeah.
addressed
Yeah.
its concerns about NATO. And today we are stuck with this silly war in Ukraine,
Ukraine.
precisely
Yeah.
because you left those issues unresolved. We also forget that in 1998, Russia declared a sovereign default, right? So
Yeah.
today, if Russia is a $1 trillion economy, by no measure, how do you decide that it is declining? If anything, it is growing. But obviously, it's not at the same level that is commensurate to the growth of, let's say, India or China, definitely not China. But Russia is not about to vanish as an economic force. But given the fact that they have a very small population base as
Yeah.
compared to China and India, their ability to uh, have high growth rates dependent on the internal market is not very good. So, and unfortunately, in terms of exports, they really have only natural resources.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
have to be careful not to get stuck into what is traditionally known as the Dutch disease, where
Yeah.
you start exporting and then countries that are importers start dictating policy to you because you
Yeah.
can't get off exports. So the Russians have to play the game carefully in this context. But are they a declining power? I would tend to disagree.
Nandan, thanks very much. A lot of insight there, food for thought, and been good talking to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Surya. Thank you. You're one of the few people who lets me talk.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks a lot. That's all we have for you on this broadcast. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Thank you very much.